Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Coin. It's Whitney on the pod with me again today. Hey, Whitney.
Hi, Allegra. Hi, listeners.
We are going to be talking about retirement today, a word that
Yay.
I hate. And I'm not afraid to share how much I hate that word, mainly because of the concept it represents, which I think has become a very American concept of work really hard, don't pay attention, but put something away, hopefully enough to have a big pot when you're at least 65 years old to be able to retire on and start doing whatever you please. And I've just always thought that that was a bad bag of goods. I don't know. How do you feel about the concept of American retirement, Whit?
Well, I think what the industry teaches, I'm not a fan of, but generally speaking, retirement, financial freedom is quite literally one of my favorite topics. It's what I've been dreaming about ever since I started working. So it kind of just goes back to you got to make it what you want it to be and not
Yes.
let, the industry or other people set the standard for you because then you hate it.
Yeah. And I think when you replace the word with financial freedom, I too get really excited. I just think the more dominant term out there is retirement, this kind of elusive thing we're all working towards. But regardless, we get asked this question all the time. So we decided to do an episode on it to try and make it a little bit more approachable. So let's get into talking about general retirement because it is very obscure and just not understood around the globe, not even just in America. And I think people have a really hard time grasping how all this works, right? How their 401ks work in the end. They might know they have one. Hopefully, if they have a match, they know how to contribute and make it, but they don't really know what it's going to mean for them in the end. And same thing with other retirement like accounts. So whether that's a 403b or an IRA, or if you have access to a pension still. So when it comes to figuring out how much money you will need for retirement, the best place to start is learning the ins and outs of how retirement accounts actually work, because these things are important. They have tax advantages that we talk about ad nauseum at Factora. And we also talk about how to set up your account structures and utilize these different retirement accounts and tax saving strategies throughout the wealth circle. So definitely lean on us as a resource. And we've done a couple of episodes where we dig down into specific retirement accounts. You can check out episode 157, all about 401ks, and 163, all about IRAs, as a follow-up to this episode if you haven't already listened. But Whitney, if you can kind of start us off by sharing your thoughts on this general retirement situation.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point that when a lot of us hear the word retirement, we think old. We think it's very far away. And if it helps people to refer to retirement as financial freedom, meaning like you can hit that age where you aren't reliant on work and a paycheck sooner, by all means, do it.
Wait, and sorry to interject. I think that would be worthwhile just to define financial freedom, at least how we define it here at Factora, because I think everyone loves the term financial freedom. We have really noticed that women are like, yeah, that's a way better term. I love it. It sounds good. It feels good. Everyone loves freedom. Everyone loves money and no stress from money. So financial freedom sounds great, but the way we define it is when you have the option to not work. Doesn't mean that you can't continue to work, but work becomes optional because you have enough passive income to take care of your lifestyle expenses, right? Like life costs money. You got to live somewhere. You got to eat some food. You got to pay for Wi-Fi. And so most of us go to a job to pay for those expenses. But at Factora, we're teaching women how to invest in assets that can bring them passive income. So instead of exchanging their time for money, they're exchanging their money for more money. And then that can pay for their life. So just wanted to share how we define financial freedom here.
Yeah.
But
no, I
please
love
continue.
it. Thank you for level setting. And for the purposes of this episode, I'll still continue to use the word retirement, not to confuse anyone. Just keep in mind that retirement can be tomorrow if you can make it work with your investments. Don't think that it's, you have to be old to reach retirement. So, keep the vision of young retirement if that's your true goal. But like I said before, retirement really is one of my favorite topics. And this is something I have been dreaming of, working towards since like day one of my career. And I think like most people, the goal for my career and my retirement was initially to work a full-time schedule for 4 decades, max out my retirement accounts as I continue to make more money throughout my career, retire at age 60, which is really considered the earlier side these days. And then at that time in my 60s, I would gain all the freedom that I finally wanted and I've always dreamed of to just live life the way I wanted. Now that I have so much more life perspective, I look back on that thought process and think how crazy just to fully accept the fact that I would sacrifice my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s to finally start living in my 60s. Like I've always been a financial enthusiast. So why did I not get creative earlier and push the envelope to figure out how I could build more freedom into my life sooner? But I think, again, like most people, I never put calculations behind my retirement. I never did the math. I was just taking the industry's word for when my retirement should be. But when I finally sat down, did the math for myself, understood how much money I actually needed in my retirement accounts to feel comfortable not getting a paycheck anymore, and then backing into how I would realistically get there with my investments, my entire perspective changed because I realized like, whoa, this number is way more in reach than I thought. And then I got super motivated. So that's why I'm now like extra hyped on retirement.
Okay, first of all, you referred to yourself as typical. I always share, if you listen to this podcast, how atypical I think you are, because a lot of women I know who got their career started in corporate America did not prioritize their money. They did not max out their retirement accounts. In fact, we see most women not maxing out their retirement accounts until they come through a Factora Wealth Circle, because they didn't even know that maybe, for the year 2023, they could put 22.5 into their 401k. And so they're just getting their match, which it's not bad, but if they could do more, they should be doing more. So I just want to make sure you know that you're not the typical woman. I wish that I had been, as you refer to yourself, a financial enthusiast in my 20s and investing then. I didn't get started till my 30s. So just proof that it's still doable no matter when you start. But I think the roadblock for most people is that, lives are busy and complicated, and money feels so overwhelming that they almost just want to be told by a professional or, someone trustworthy with a designation behind their name, this one magical amount that they need to have a safe, acceptable retirement. And unfortunately, our lives are just so different, right? We're all coming from different backgrounds, going in different directions, have different goals, have different family structures and responsibilities. So retirement in general is kind of an oxymoron. It is going to look so different for everyone because it can't be generalized. It's so much more dynamic than that because it's based on the individual. So unfortunately, one magical retirement number that works for everyone just can't exist. And I want to extrapolate that out to personal finance in general. I always joke in the Well Circle, like, if only I had a dollar going into my investment accounts every time I said this. But personal finance is just that, it's personal. You can't have a generalized piece of advice that works for everyone. And that might sound obvious when I'm saying it now, but I know it doesn't feel good when you just want to know, like, do I need $1 million? Do I need 2 million? Like, what is going to make it okay for me? Thinking that you are just like everyone else, but you're not. You've got an individual circumstance.
Yeah, no, that's totally right. And the thing is, people are still looking for that one number, looking to be told that one number. But retirement is not just like a single amount of money to save that you then spend down before you die. Like it's a compilation of your investments and your accounts that continue to compound even during retirement. And it's a whole calculation with multiple variables. But, here's the part that many people don't understand. It's actually not that complicated. It's very figure outable. So the industry obviously wants you to think, oh, you need us to figure out your retirement number. It's confusing. They also want to keep you in the workforce longer. It's more beneficial for them. But everyone can figure out their personal retirement number for themselves. You definitely don't need to pay a financial advisor or professional to figure this out for you. So, that's what we're going to walk through in this episode.
Yeah. And it's funny because I can think back to my New York career days where I legitimately thought that the way to a nice retirement was to make a lot of money at a big, high powered career and then give all that money over to a financial advisor to do something very important and complicated with, and then tell me when I could retire / like help me do it. And I didn't think that a solid retirement was something I could even achieve on my own. So fast forward, obviously, to where I am now, I teach women how to build wealth and how this is all so doable on your own, and that the industry is really there to kind of make you feel insecure and insignificant and inadequate of doing this yourself.
And that's
So,
any industry, right?
yeah.
Like they're gonna convince us that we need them to pay into their value to, there's
Oh, we
something.
could do a whole nother episode on the medical industry. Whitney and I have lots to say there. We could do it on the education industry.
Yeah.
It's so true. All these industries are really there to act like they're the only ones that have the answers that you need. And that's really not true. But I do think a big unfortunate piece of American culture is that we kind of give our autonomy over to experts instead of depending on ourselves and doing, yes, the hard work and sometimes the deep work of, one, figuring out what we want, and two, figuring out how to get it. So I know that when people join the Well Circle, retirement feels like this big, lofty concept or just something really, really far away and kind of unattainable. So it's definitely a bit discouraging. But my favorite thing is to see the transformation of women from the start to the end of the Well Circle when, like you and me, they become very excited and energized by the idea of financial freedom, AKA retirement, because they've learned how to look at the topic more tactically and holistically, and they can actually do math to understand what amount of investments they need to compound over what time to get to a number that works for them. So they're actually a lot closer than they realize. But okay, I digress. We've determined that looking to someone else for our retirement number is not what we should all hang our hats on. So then, Whitney, how do we figure out this number?
Well, okay, yes. And one thing to add is you can't look to someone else for this number, but you also can't fully look to the internet either. I know a lot of people are going to have the urge to go to Google, type in, how much money do I need to retire? Hopefully a number will pop up, and that's the end of that. But that's not going to work either, because what's going to happen is you're probably going to get served a bunch of tables or matrices that suggest how much of your salary you should have saved for retirement by a certain age. So, like, for example, you should save 3 times your annual salary by age 40. Like, obviously this is flawed. One, not everyone's a salaried employee. There's contractors, freelancers, wage workers, you name it. So that doesn't work for everyone. For those even who are salaried, though, like we just talked about, a blanket financial suggestion like this is not going to work for everyone's unique life, right? Like, it's unrealistic that everyone fits into the same perfect size box. Number 2, you've probably made many different salaries by age 40. So, like, which salary are you targeting to, triple by that age? Like, super confusing. And then number 3, like, your lifestyle and your income during your working years is one thing, and your lifestyle that you want during retirement and what you spend at that phase of life is totally different. Like, it's not going to be the same. So you might be trying to turn apples into oranges here. So I don't like those matrices. I don't like blanket financial statements for all those variable reasons. But something you can find on the internet, and it's very popular within the FIRE community, the Financial Independence Retire Early, is known as the 4% rule.
Ah, yes, the 4% rule. And the FIRE community. If you're someone listening who's never heard of that acronym, like Whitney said, it's a whole movement online all about financial independence, retire early. These are the people who are kind of like, hey, maybe we did get sold a bad bag of goods of just working and not paying attention. What if we actually focus less on work at our jobs and more on working to get more money from our jobs invested so that we can peace out early, hence the financial independence, retire early. But the 4% rule is really interesting. And could you give us a little bit more background on what that is?
Yeah. So a financial advisor named William Bengen, I'm actually not sure how to pronounce his last name, but he's the one who came up with this concept based on his research in the 90s. So, it's not perfect like anything in personal finance. It's a bit outdated, admittedly. This was conceptualized in the 90s, but I do think it's a really helpful place to start when you don't know where to start. And I'm not saying you have to be part of the FIRE community to use the 4% rule, but it's great to borrow concepts that fit your lifestyle from many different areas. So here's what the 4% rule assumes. It assumes that most of your money is invested in the stock market, is not in savings accounts. It is not tied up in other asset classes like real estate or businesses. It's mostly in the stock market. You are gaining a 5% return on these investments after inflation and taxes. That's another assumption. You will live for 30 years in retirement. You will have no additional income in retirement. So no Social Security, pensions, dividends, rental income from real estate, business ownership payouts, part-time unemployment, none of that. You are just pulling from your investments. It also doesn't account for variation in expenses during retirement. So, like, years you get hit with a big medical bill or an extra large tax bill. It doesn't account for certain market fluctuations like downshifts or recessions. And it just ultimately doesn't account for any huge lifestyle adjustments during retirement. So, full disclosure on that, because again, it is not perfect, but it is a great starting point. And because the calculation, which I'll get into in a second, is so transparent, you can easily modify it for your lifestyle and your retirement desires.
So then let's talk about how the equation works. What is the 4% calculation.
Right. Okay. I know you guys are probably
Let me into the numbers, Whitney.
I know you're getting super frustrated with me because I'm not giving it to you right away. Because even so, before I can give you the equation, you really have to picture what you want for retirement. Like, what does your life look like in retirement? You have to know this first. Do you desire super simple living? Are you mostly going to stick to your routine? Do you desire more luxurious living in retirement where you're going to enjoy all the comforts of the world? Do you want to leave a legacy? Do you want to die with zero? You have to know this to get to your number. If you're not, a woo-woo person, and you don't really love journaling like myself, I just want to say, force yourself to do it. Force yourself to sit down just for a few minutes and jot down what your retirement looks like. Because we can all have pictures and ideas in our head, but unless we give it focus and it's truly written down, that's going to escape us. It's going to easily change. And this is a very helpful exercise that we do in the Well Circle, where someone like me, who's not a journalist, is forced to sit down and truly understand what that looks like, what retirement looks like to get to the number. Because, it's a mental destination for retirement. So once you have that in your head, you're then in position to do the math, which I know everyone wants to get to.
Yeah, it's so funny to me because when it comes to personal finance and wealth building, I think that's all people want. They just want the numbers, the spreadsheets, the calculations, like give me the tactical, and none of it starts with that. Like it literally all starts from gut check and mindset of what do you want? Because we can't come up with a number goal until we know what the life goal is, right? Because they're all attached, right? We know if we want to buy a house for our family as a life goal, there's numbers involved for how much of a down payment and how much of a monthly nut that's going to cost and repairs and what like that. You have to have the like desire before you can get into the tactical. And people want to skip this, but it's truly where everything has to start. So we reference kind of a GPS a lot in the Well Circle. Like if you can't put in the address of where you're going, how are you supposed to determine the directions to get there, right? Like we got to know our starting place. We got to know what we're aiming for. Then we can work out a plan. And so, it's the same thing with this retirement and 4% calc.
That's exactly right. You need those GPS coordinates. You need to know where you're starting from, where you're going. So, okay, back to the equation. So now that you can visualize what you want your retirement to look like, next step is to figure out your annual spending number today. And this is another really, really helpful exercise we do in the Well Circle, where we do a lifestyle analysis and look through all of our expenses and bucket them into specific categories, and then take a look at those categories and say, oh, that's too much, that's too little, here's how I can adjust this, here's where I can make changes. But either way, whatever your annual spending number is today, that is going to be your baseline number. So let me give an example to help people understand what I'm trying to say. Let's say you have a partner and a family, and you're spending $100,000 a year because you're raising 2 young kids, you're paying for all those necessities that come along with it. But in 15 to 20 years, when you want to retire, you anticipate that your kids will be grown and paying for themselves. There's no more private school tuition, your house will be paid off, you'll be spending less on gas, car maintenance, because you're not commuting to the office every day. And essentially your lifestyle that you want, you can cut your spending down in half. You can get that to $50,000 a year. So that's now become your retirement spending number. So you've taken 100K as your baseline and you've reduced it down, by looking at the categories you could cut, you're at $50K a year.
Which makes a lot of sense, because if you have that mortgage paid off, that's a big expense done. If you're not paying for those kids, that's a big expense done. So now you're saying you and your partner are just doing standard. They're kind of choosing that routine life. Get it down to 50K.
Yep, exactly. And I'm using round numbers here for example purposes. So just want to point that out. But using the 4% rule, you would then divide your expenses, 50K, by 4%, and that gives you 1.25 million, which is the number you would need invested in your retirement accounts in order to cover your expenses without having to get a paycheck.
And so that would last you for 30 years. That's what the 4% rule is assuming.
That's what it is assuming. This calculation, now I just used an example of a couple and a family, but this calculation would work the same if you're an individual, if you're a couple, if you're a throuple, like whatever your situation is, it'll work the same for you.
Whitney with the throuples. I don't know too many of them, but
whatever, like the point is,
but like maybe you're taking care of a parent, or maybe you're taking care of a child, etc. So, okay. Just to recap how that 4% calculation works, you take your desired annual expense spending in retirement. So she gave the $50,000 example, and you divide that into 4%. Okay. Now, you told us earlier that this number is just a starting point and that it's a bit outdated because it was created in the 90s. Taxes and inflation obviously look different now, and it's not accounting for market fluctuations, health expenses, which can get costly in retirement, etc. So how does someone kind of adjust from there?
Yeah. So this is where I would suggest not fully going off of the 4% rule blindly and doing some modifications. So once you calculate your number, you got to do that gut check and ask yourself, how does this number, 1.25 million in the example I just gave, how does this number feel to me? You know your life best, like you know what you want for your life in the future. Like, do you foresee ongoing liabilities in retirement? Will you need to financially take care of family members? Do you have a business that you're responsible for still? Do you have a portfolio of investment properties that might require some additional expenses? Are you highly leveraged? If the answer is yes to these questions, then you're going to want to pad that number. You're going to want to give yourself a comfortable buffer. On the other side, will you have additional income in retirement? Like maybe your desire is to work part-time on something you love, or remain on a couple of business boards that pay you, or maybe you're getting great additional income from some real estate investments or business assets, or getting additional income somewhere else. And if that's the case, you may feel comfortable, decreasing that 4% number, or just hitting that number earlier and retiring earlier than you anticipated. So one strategy I want to point out is that I've heard a lot of people modernizing the 4% rule by changing it to the 3% rule, because it just automatically provides that extra cushion in those variables we discussed without having to do too much extra thinking. So for example, using, our previous numbers with the 4% rule, this couple would need 1.25 million invested in their retirement assets to comfortably retire. Whereas if they use the 3% rule, they would need 1.67 million in retirement assets. So they divided that 50,000 by 3% instead of 4% to get a higher target retirement number.
Yeah, makes total sense. And then just one thing I feel like we didn't really express yet that is so helpful just from a concept perspective of the 4% rule is the reason that you're taking this 4% is that you're still having a good amount left in your retirement accounts, right? Because they're growing and you're casting some off. So that's how you maintain a principal that can last you for 30 years. I don't know if we explained that.
Oh yeah, good. Yeah, good point. Obviously, if you take it all out of the market, you're not getting any more compounding. So I guess originally that 4% was like, okay, how can I withdraw from my investment accounts while still letting them compound at a rate that's going to get me more money in retirement?
Exactly. It's not like you're saying like, let's take out a big amount now and do something crazy. And then, yeah, this is how
Yeah.
you preserve the principal for as long as possible.
Yep. Sustain. Yes.
Okay. So I want to go back to the idea of having additional income in retirement from real estate or business assets.
Mm-hmm.
In the Wealth Circle, we are always talking about there's 3 different ways to build wealth. There's paper assets, which includes stock market, is predominantly what we're talking about is the stock market. There's real estate and there's business assets. And all 3 are great. All 3 have very different characteristics, and there's a lot within each asset class. But I know when women come into the Wealth Circle, they often think, hey, it's just the stock market that we're going to be talking about, and not true. There's other vehicles to build wealth. So we love passive income at Factora, and you can get passive income from all 3 of these asset classes. So I guess I'm just trying to understand how you might consider those other asset classes in retirement.
I'm glad you brought this up because, like, again, the 4% rule assumes a lot of your assets are in the stock market, but so many women in the Factor community are investing in other asset classes like real estate or business. So let's talk about how those play in to this number for a little bit, because you're really going to use a different calculation that takes into the account your monthly income from those assets to figure out your retirement number. So let's go through another example. Let's say that someone has a portfolio of 15 investment properties. If they need $50,000 a year for retirement, that's roughly $4,200 a month in income, which means that their portfolio of investment properties needs to cover at least that amount in cash flow. So to get there, they may need to add additional investment properties to their portfolio. They might need to supplement with investing in the stock market, and then, adding the 4% rule calculation to their monthly income that they're receiving from their rental properties. So essentially, any additional income you have will get you to the 4% retirement number faster. So if you really only have business assets and real estate assets, your retirement number is going to be based off of like the monthly income number
that it can provide you.
Yeah, rather than
but that makes total sense, because if those 15 investment properties were easily getting them $4,200 a month in passive income, they could just do their retirement. They could pay for their retirement through those real estate investments as opposed to having their stock market. So that was like really helpful to see it a whole different way. Like,
and if you like, I have all of these investments in my portfolio. So I'm going to need to mix my 4% rule with my additional income from real estate and maybe business assets down the line. And I know you're going to have to do the same thing. So this is when those variables come into play. But again,
this is why we want all women to have more and more assets. The more assets, the better, because all it can do is help the situation. But maybe it would be useful to have you just walk us through how you calculated your retirement number using this concept.
Yeah. Okay. So using me as an example, step 1, I got really introspective and truly envisioned what I wanted my retirement to look like. That is a lot of travel. It's comfortable living where I really don't have to worry about being on a strict budget. And it's being, financially free around the age of 45. So that's my vision. Other people's vision may look totally different. So step 2, I conducted my lifestyle analysis where I got a very, very clear picture of how much money I'm currently spending now and in what categories. Currently, my monthly spending number is $6,000 a month. So that means I spend $72,000 a year. That's today, my lifestyle now. So then step 3, using the information from steps 1 and 2, I then determine that like, I want to be able to spend more money than I'm spending now in retirement. Okay, like I know I've shared my background, but I've been super frugal my whole life, and I honestly want to give my frugal brain a break and reward myself for working so hard and investing for so many years and really pinching pennies. So I want to change my lifestyle. And a lot of people, I'll say, are the opposite, right? They have spent a lot in their younger years because they didn't understand saving, investing, retirement, and they're reining it in now, and they're going to be able to spend less in retirement. So I may be a bit of an opposite example, but either way, that's what I want. That's what I decided I want in retirement. So, okay. And I think I shared, I have stock market investments, and then along the way, I picked up some real estate investments and business investments. So I have all 3 asset classes in my portfolio. So I decided that this is my gut check part, that I want to round that $72,000 a year expenses up to $90,000 a year in retirement to give myself the option to spend that much if I wanted to. So using the 4% rule, I would divide 90,000 by 4%. That gives me a number of 2.25 million. That needs to be invested in my retirement accounts to enable me to retire the way I want. Now, I did my buffering on the front end because I don't truly think I will spend $90K every single year in retirement. Eventually my house is going to be paid off. Some of my expenses will go down. But that $90K is my full buffer. So I am comfortable with that 2.25 million number. And that's how I got there. Now, if I wanted to use the 3% rule and add an additional buffer, I would divide that 90K by 3%, and then my number would become 3 million. So that's just an example. But I felt like I had the buffer in there. So 2.25 million is my retirement number, and that's how I backed into it with the 4% rule.
Okay, so just a few questions because that was really helpful to walk through. One, I heard you say at some point your mortgage will be paid off. So in that 90,000 annual spend, you are including a mortgage payment monthly?
I am. I am not accounting for it to go away, but it will. So that's another buffer.
Okay, so then that'll come back and you can spend even more glamorously. And then, yeah, because didn't you refi into a 20-year mortgage or 15?
25-year, but it really just kept my original 30-year time frame. So
okay.
It didn't cut the time frame down.
Second question. Is this for you as an individual or you and your husband?
Oh, yes. Good question. This is me as an individual. I'm calculating my retirement solo. My partner and I keep our finances separate. So we've done the exercise of doing it together, but very simple for me to just calculate it on my own as a solo person.
Okay. So Whitney and her partner, Joey, actually have a few episodes. You can definitely check those out. I think it's episode 50 where they talk about how they structure their finances, and they do choose to keep them separate unless they co-invest in something together. It's all separate. My husband and I are different. We are full household, all in. And And that's just one more example of personal finances needing to work for you, right? Like we are both coupled, married, filing jointly, and choosing to have different financial structures that work for us. That's your permission to do it the way it works for you, not the way Google says we should all be doing it. But anyways, I think my last question is just how are you factoring in those real estate and business assets that you mentioned?
Yes. Okay. Good question. Right now, I'm not, to be even more conservative. But if down the road I'm starting to make consistent income, from my property, from my business investments, then that's just going to speed me up to reaching my retirement number. And if I add additional income streams, same thing. That's just all the better. That's going to speed me up to getting to my numbers. So I'm kind of thinking of additional income streams as a bonus right now, not a necessity, and I'm leaving them out for now.
Okay. I like how conservative you're being, because you always say that you're conservative, and in a way, I agree with this, but in other ways, listen to more episodes we've done. I call her out on that plenty. But how far along are you to reaching that 2.25 million financial freedom retirement number today?
So currently I have $1 million invested in the stock market, and I'm going to anticipate that number growing to 2 million in 10 years using the rule of 72. So without contributing anything else to my retirement account is going to double to 2 million. And that's because my investments are doing the work for me. They're compounding every year. And if you're not familiar with the rule of 72, it's used to estimate the number of years your money will double at a given annual rate of return. This is a concept we love, and it's when we teach women in the wealth circle, to use to project how much their investments will double in a certain time frame. So it's a great thing for projection, super easy math. So that means before I could fully retire in 10 years, I'll still need to subsidize that, $250,000, because my number is 2.25 million. I already know I'm going to get to 2 million with my investments. I need to get that 250,000 either from, income from active jobs, contributing extra to my investment accounts, either picking up another investment property, getting income from there. However I want to do it, I don't fully know yet, but I do know I need to get that extra 250 to be able to retire in 10 years.
Okay, snaps for Whitney, wherever you're listening from, because she already has $1 million in her stock market accounts. And the rule of 72 is truly so helpful in projecting this, but she'll have 2 million in 10 years without doing anything. Just as long as she doesn't drain them, as long as she just lets them sit there and compound, she will have the eighth wonder of the world working in her favor. But Whitney, I also know that you've taken a very different stance on waiting for financial freedom, or waiting for this moment of reaching retirement to change your work-life balance and get more flexibility in your life today. So can you just tell our listeners a little bit about the concept of financial flexibility, which, as we talk about a lot about in Factora, can come well before financial freedom. Like well before you have that 2.25 million,
yeah.
You can do a lot of things as long as you have a lot of assets, and you're currently doing that. So some people may have just started listening recently and don't even know you're on a sabbatical-esque.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the creativity comes into play. Like, retirement doesn't mean all or nothing. Like, it doesn't have to mean you work full time for decades and then your income completely stops. There's this middle zone of financial flexibility, where you feel like you've built up a good portion of retirement assets to date. So you have the option to reduce your income either by taking a couple years off work, in between, or just going part-time and reducing your workload and still letting your investments compound. And yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing now to build more freedom into my life. I've scaled back my work to a part-time schedule. So yes, I've reduced my income to get more freedom, but my income is just covering the bills. It's really not giving me much extra. So I'm not contributing a lot to my investment accounts right now. But I am leaving those intact, so they're compounding without me touching them. So I'm letting them do the work without interrupting them. I'm just not adding a lot to them right now. But, because of this flexibility, I am able to travel a lot. I'm able to, quote unquote, live in other countries where the cost of living is much cheaper while I rent out my house in the US for more money. So again, it's creativity and reducing expenses, finding other income streams. And yes, it's delaying my full financial freedom years, my full retirement years, but it's bringing more satisfaction to my life right now, which I think is invaluable. And this is just something I never thought was even an option when I was in my 20s.
And I just have to chime in on that because I commend you so much. And I feel like your choice to step back from full-time work and take a self-funded sabbatical and get really creative using your real estate investments and scaling back to just some part-time consulting gigs to cover your expenses and not go out of pocket, but also not do what you're so used to doing, which is contributing excessively to your investment accounts, which I know that has to have been like a shift mentally.
It's a mindset shift. It is.
Yeah. But I just think that has kicked off a sabbatical phenomenon inside of the Factora community. Now everyone's like, holy shit, possibility drop. If Whitney can take a chosen sabbatical, not have to work at a company that, because I think my friend works at Lululemon, and after, I believe it's 5 years, they'll pay for like a 3-month sabbatical for you, which is amazing. But like, just the realization that you can take your own whenever it works for you or whenever you might need a mental health break is even more exceptional because it puts us back in the driver's seat of our life.
Yeah.
And that is why it's so important to be so intentional and considerate and understanding of your finances, which, as I hope this podcast has taught you, is so possible with every element there is to your finances. And Factora is so devoted to helping you look at them holistically. Obviously, we're deep diving this topic right now, but we put it all together for you in the Wealth Circle.
It's doable for everyone as long as you do the math. You do the work, you do the math, you do the calculation, and you back into it. Like, the problem is people don't do that. And once you do it, it's like mind blown. Like, I could do this. So, that's the point of this episode, to encourage you to do your retirement calculations, to do the math for yourself, because I think it will inspire everybody.
Totally.
Okay, Allegra, though, like, before we close out the episode, I think listeners would love to hear you walk through your retirement number and how you calculated it and got there.
Okay. Well, for me, retired life looks like living between a ranch and spending summers in a Spanish-speaking country without needing to work at all by age 60. So that's 23 years from today. And that's mainly because I have a lot of projects I want to do between now and then. So I plan to still bring in a lot of income and pad not just my stock market accounts, but also make a lot more business and real estate investments in that time. Currently, my household spends $150,000 a year. And I think that's the right amount for us in retirement too. Like, in 23 years, we will have had our kids and they will be already out of the house and off the ticket.
How many people is that are you accounting for in that one?
Just myself and my husband. The $150K will be for our lifestyle expenses.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, I mean, obviously we're going to like do nice things for our kids, but the good news is in that time, we will have not just our house, but all of our investment properties paid off because we got 30-year mortgages a while ago. And I'd like to think we'll speed those up a bit too. So I went ahead and did the 3% rule to be a bit more conservative, which means I divided 150K into 3%. And that means I will need 5 million.
5 million. Allegra's retirement number, everybody.
I know, but I need to do that by age 60, which is a lot further away than 45 is for you.
You know, and this is just the good thing to point out, like, you know, Allegra is a good example of calculating a number for like a household in a partnership. My example is good for calculating a number as a solo person. So again, you could do it for any situation.
And our current portfolios look very differently. I have a lot more property and business investments than Whitney, and Whitney has a lot more in her stock market accounts than I do. I have $250,000 in our stock market investments currently. So we just have different profiles, and we have different goals, and we have different timelines. And that is the point. But we can both sit here and feel comfortable that one number would not have worked for both of us.
Right. So are you calculating your real estate and business investments in your 5 million? How's that working?
Not really. Okay. So that will all be extra because, like I said, these kids will be off the ticket technically, but you know, kids are little wealth suckers. And so, you know, those 3 investment properties I have right now will be paid off. Their current value is 1.7 million. So in 23 years, I expect that to be more than double. And so that will be extra cushion.
Great. Well, thank you for walking us through that example. I truly hope that, you know, this calculation, how you modify it, how you can use it for different situations, my personal example, Allegra's personal example, I hope that brought some clarity to how you can calculate your retirement number back into how much you will need, by what age to you know, hit your desired retirement. I hope it lifted the fog for a lot of you, because it is an exciting topic. We don't want people to feel intimidated by it or that it's really far away, because it can be very near. And
yes, and you can get very and you can get very creative, and you can I mean, actually, I hope all these topics interest you. If the 4% rule was something you hadn't heard of, check that out. If rule of 72 was a new concept, check that out. You know, like all of this is what we have to do additional research on to get comfortable with the concepts and then putting them together. And obviously, if you ever need more help, we're here.
We're here for you. Well, thank you, listeners. Fun talking to you today, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, Whitney.
Bye.